We're answering your garden questions here on the Garden Basics podcast. I always bring in the chief answerer. America's favorite retired college horticultural professor, Debbie Flower, is here. Debbie, Patty in Petaluma has a question for us.
Okay.
Hi, Farmer Fred and Debbie Flower. This is Patty. I live in Petaluma, California, Zone 9B. Quick question. I grow mostly in raised beds, but I also grow mostly from seed. I really want to mulch, but how will those seeds sprout through the mulch? Thank you.
Petaluma in Sonoma County here in Northern California. And Patty said she is growing mostly in raised beds and she grows from seed, and that's really great, but she wants to use mulch. But how will those seeds sprout through the mulch, she asks. Well, it's a fair question.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this confuses me. Seeds need light.
Some do.
But they're buried down in the soil, but not by much.
Some seeds need light, some seeds need darkness, and some are kind of in the middle. And you can research that. Or if these are seeds in a commercial seed packet, they will tell you if the seeds need light to germinate. And that means you put them on the surface of the soil, and so they receive light and hope they don't dry out. And that can be tricky.
Yeah, and if they call to be covered, you don't want to cover it by too much. So would that be the reason that mulch on top of a new seed bed may not be a good idea?
Yes. Well, two reasons. One, it may result in the seed being too deep underneath media and mulch, or it may be, if it's depending on what the mulch is made of, the mulch itself may be too heavy, and the baby plant growing from the seed can't push it out of the way.
It doesn't come out of the ground like Popeye.
No.
After a can of spinach. No. All right. What I do, I mulch all my beds. They spend the fall and winter with shredded leaves on top of the bed. Mm-hmm. Come late winter, early spring, and I want to plant from seed in a bed, I usually just clear off a little row, just a few inches wide, and plant in that row.
Right.
And
so you move the mulch away, or if you haven't applied it yet, you don't apply it exactly where you put the seed. Mm-hmm. The one thing you can use is vermiculite.
To cover the seed.
To cover the seed, yes.
But not too thickly, I would imagine.
Well, I've had students do it thicker than I thought was a good idea. Kind of maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch. So you can't see the soil at all. And the seeds have come up anyway. And they were seeds that need light. That's one of the beauties of vermiculite, is it reflects light.
Would you only use vermiculite then for those seeds that need light?
I use it on everything because it traps moisture. It holds moisture above the seed, and a seed has to remain wet. Once it's gotten wet and starts to germinate, even if you can't see that it's germinating, stuff is going on inside that seed. If it dries out, it dies. And so vermiculite holds an extra amount of moisture over the seed and without drowning the seed. And also, if the seed needs light, it provides that, or it allows that to get to the seed.
We can make it easy for you too. If you want to do that, you could just buy a commercial seed starting mix and cover that with a very thin layer.
Right. For me, the beauty of vermiculite is I can see it, so I know where the seeds are.
Yeah.
Whereas with a seed starting mix, it would probably blend into my soil in my raised bed, and I wouldn't know the exact location of the seed.
Well, you're not going to know it anyway after you water it in.
The vermiculite is visible not forever, but for generally until the seed germinates.
Right. Now the question is, what sort of mulch should you use? I mean, you're going to move that mulch back near the plant after it is strong enough and taller than the mulch.
Right.
And you would still not touch that plant with the mulch. You just bring it up nearby. Mm-hmm. And it'll live happily ever after.
We can hope.
We can hope, yeah. All right. But it depends on the mulch.
Yes.
Recently, the Sacramento Tree Foundation conducted a little experiment. Mulch materials ranked from best to worst. And this is talking about mulching established plants.
And trees. This is the Tree Foundation.
Yeah, no, this is the Tree Foundation. So they're looking at trees and shrubs. They're looking to employ a mulch to do what mulch does best. It increases soil moisture content by modifying the soil structure. It increases the porosity of the soil. It decreases salt buildup in the plant root zone. It adds organic matter to the soil as the mulch breaks down, thus increasing their nutrient content. It decreases soil-borne diseases, and it increases the growth of trees and other woody perennials that are planted under them. So there's a lot of good reasons for planting mulch because of water and soil temperature and weed control, things like that there. And when you are adding mulch to the soil, you're just adding it to the top of the soil.
Right. You're
not mixing it in.
The definition of mulch is it's on the surface. An amendment is something that you mix in. This is not we're not talking about an amendment. We're talking about a mulch.
Explain why you don't want to incorporate mulch into the soil.
There are many different kinds of mulches, and they vary in what they do once they're mixed into the soil. But a number one reason is that the microorganisms that break down that mulch, we're talking about organic mulch now. So it could be sawdust, it could be grass clippings, bark from trees, or chippings from a whole tree. But those microorganisms that break that down will rush away from the plants that are actively growing and work on the mulch itself. And they need some nutrition themselves to work on that mulch, to break it down and release the nutrients within the mulch. And so they take the nutrition away from the existing plants.
The best mulch that, according to the Sacramento Tree Foundation, you can use is natural wood chips, also known as arborist wood chips. It's mulch that's made from all parts of a tree. When they cut a tree down, you've got all those things. You got leaves and twigs and bark and wood. And when applied in a layer 4 to 6 inches thick, the uneven size of the wood chips allows them to lock together, forms a thick mat that blocks weeds, retains soil moisture, insulates roots from extreme temperatures. It also improves the soil over time, loosening compaction, feeding beneficial soil microbes, providing nutrition for your tree. And as long as you apply it correctly on top of the soil, maybe even put a layer of compost beneath that mulch too, as a little extra nutritive
potential
boost.
Yes.
But you've also talked about too something that a lot of people will say, I did not know that. And that is that mulch protects your garden from rainstorms in a good way.
Yeah, rainstorms and overhead irrigation. The water coming down from above, whether it's from your spray irrigation or from raindrops, is so powerful when it hits the soil that it can cause soil compaction. It can break down soil structure into the tiniest little particles of soil, and then they find their way between other particles, and pretty soon your soil is very, very hard and compacted. And compact soil limits the ability of oxygen and water to get to the plant roots. So it's not a good thing for the plant.
A lot of people ask me, well, how do you get a tree company to drop off a load of these wood chips from some tree that they knocked down? It used to be you'd go up to the truck when you heard that motor. You have
I still do.
Yes. You've told the famous story of being awakened by the sound of a chipper shredder early in the morning and dashing out the door.
Yes. Got to find that.
Got to find it and see if they'll drop it off into my place.
Yeah.
Yes. I think now they've been trained to say, just call the office. We'll put you on the list.
Right. It's become more and more popular for people to want those chips. And so that is the response I got most recently when I did that.
Right. Yeah. And most companies are glad to do it. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's nice that it's centrally controlled.
Yes.
You may not get it that day.
Right.
But at least you're on the list. I often worry, though, about that load, about that tree they took down. Why did they take the tree down? Was there a disease associated with it or a pest associated with it that could transfer to my garden?
That's a good question. And there could have been a pest or a disease in that plant that was taken down. But all research has shown that those diseases and insect pests and fungus, bacteria, all those things do not survive the process of the chipping and then the moving of the pile. They rely on the intact plant in order to, even like a termite. Termites don't live in wood mulch. They rely on bigger pieces of wood, not on this chipped up stuff that's piled up with lots of air between it, gets wet, dries out. It's a very different environment. So the diseases, insects, pests, etc., that may have caused the demise of the tree do not survive the process, so they don't come to your house. The one thing that does is potentially a seed. I have had things come up in my yard from seed that came in the chipped wood.
Yes, I mean, how many loads have you ever received? And there's liquid amber balls in there.
Liquid amber balls, yes. Yeah. My son had a load, and all these golden rain trees came up.
Oh.
Colruyteria, yes. And I had a casuarina in my yard because it came in the seed in the mulch.
Casuarina, is that the mountain she oak?
Yes.
Okay.
Or river she oak.
Yeah. What about eggs, insect eggs? Can they survive the chipping?
No, they would be
They would
be physically beaten up.
Okay. It's not a bad mix if you think about it either. When they chop down a tree, you're going to get leaves, you're going to get twigs, you're going to get bark and everything. But all of that is basically delivered to you in different sizes, so things are going to break down quicker. So it's really a nice process for slowly feeding the soil as it breaks down.
Yes, it is.
All right. So anyway, the chipped shredded tree parts is the Sacramento Tree Foundation's best idea of using natural wood chips for mulch. On their okay list, which is down a notch from best, but okay, they talk about bark. And a lot of people, when you think of chipped shredded tree parts, they think, well, I'll just go down to the nursery and buy some bark, or I'll go to the sand and gravel place and buy a truckload of bark. Mm-hmm. There have been warnings about using colored bark. Mm-hmm. There have been warnings about using fine bark, usually called gorilla hair bark, which is threads. More common here probably in California because it's usually redwoods that do that, and that has a tendency to smolder if a cigarette gets in there. Colored bark, I don't like the look of it myself.
Yeah, it's usually the cheapest stuff, so you may not be alone. Yeah.
But it includes chunks of the tree's outer bark, usually.
Right.
So it's all the same size. So it's not parts of it aren't going to break down sooner than others.
Right. And it's the part of the tree that contains a lot of waxes and oils, and those slow down the breakdown of that bark. So a better place, I think, for the bark alone, the stuff you buy in bags or get at the local supply store, is pathways to walk on. And there's a certain size that is pathway bark. Mm-hmm. And you don't want it to break down very fast there, so that it will break down more slowly than the mix. It will break down eventually, but much more slowly than the mix of the arborist chips.
Pathway bark is fairly small. It's about, an inch?
Yeah.
Yeah, about an inch by an inch or so. Pathway bark is also suggested as one of 3 ingredients in making a blueberry soil mix, too.
Right.
Along with peat moss and a rhododendron azalea camellia soil mix. Mm-hmm. And a handful of soil sulfur. Can't forget that. All right. But that's for blueberries. But generally, what they did have one suggestion, though, if you're going to go buy commercial bark, those wood chips.
Because you like the look. It's very uniform, and it does break down more slowly than the bark chips from the arborist.
Put down the chip shredded tree parts first, and then top that with your commercial bark.
Right. And you'll get that look that is so uniform. Yes.
Everybody becomes rich except you. All right. They are not that fond. I mean, it's not rated best, but again, okay. And that's shredded leaves, straw, lawn clippings, and compost. Organic materials like leaves will break down over time, enriching the soil, encouraging a healthy soil microbiome, they say, and feeding your tree. They are best combined with heavier organic matter like wood chips. Only use weed-free sources. I'm a big believer in shredded leaves because it's free.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all those things were green. Shredded leaves, straw, lawn clippings, compost. The biology of the soil is influenced by what the soil is fed. If you are growing trees and you feed the soil with a tree mulch that breaks down and the nutrients get into the soil, the microorganisms that proliferate in that soil are the ones that help trees. If you're growing herbaceous things are green things like your vegetable garden or your flower garden or your bulbs. They are green, and they benefit more from mulches that came from green things. The biology of the soil actually changes because the things that break down the softer herbaceous green things are different, and it becomes a fungus bacteria balance or imbalance. So it's a predominance. It doesn't mean that the others have gone away. It's just that because of what you're feeding the soil, one predominates over the other, and one favors trees and the other favors herbaceous things.
I think the easy way to solve that issue is get yourself a chipper shredder. Mm-hmm. And let's say you have a vegetable garden. All right. At the end of the season, chip and shred your vegetable plants.
Right.
And use that You can sit that in a compost pile and let it sit as a compost pile if you want, and then use that as a layer of mulch, even though it's compost.
Right.
It still is going to provide.
I wouldn't even hesitate to just use it right out of the chipper shredder. I don't think it's not going to grow.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't have any seeds in it because you're not using the fruit. You're not.
It's going to have tomato seeds in it if you're using tomato plants.
Okay, then that could be a problem. Then you would want to run it through the compost.
Yeah, exactly.
Process.
Yeah, compost it for a few months.
Yeah.
And that is even true if you're worried about a load you're getting from a chipper shredder, from a arborist, and they dump it in your driveway. If your neighbors don't mind, let it sit for a month or so.
It gets really hot in the center.
I did that as a little experiment one time, was to take my soil thermometer with the 36-inch probe and stick it in a 10-yard cubic yard pile of chipped and shredded tree parts. It was 140 degrees in the middle.
Wow. Yeah. And
I wasn't about to turn it.
That's the temperature. Right. That's the temperature you want a compost pile to get to and stay to for several hours to kill the bad stuff, the seeds and that kind of thing in there. So, but yes, in a composting situation, you would turn the outside into the center and let the process occur again.
And here's something that's counterintuitive. Would you add water to increase the soil temperature, to increase the temperature of that compost pile?
Once it has dried out, you need to add water, yes. Yeah. You don't want to add it so it becomes soggy. If it smells bad, sour, then you've added too much water. And that's common, that people add too much water to their compost pile. There is a compost experiment plot in Tucson, Arizona, and I don't know if it's still there, but I visited it long time ago. And the number one thing that now Tucson is very hot, it's very dry. And so you would think if you need water in a compost pile anywhere, it would be there. But their results showed that the number one thing you need is to turn the compost pile. It needs oxygen, that the microorganisms run out of oxygen first and they die. So if you turn the pile, you add oxygen as proportion anyway of the population of microorganisms stay alive and are able to do their work to break down the next stuff that has appeared because of your turning.
If you do want to ensure that pile from the arborist is okay and you have an errant teenager living in your house for punishment, tell them to turn the pile.
One year when I was working at the Skills Center and the students took care of the landscape and a vegetable garden, and we had them collect all the stuff, and we had a concrete pad up against a brick building and where there were no doors or windows, and we piled it there, and then every day we went out and moved it from one corner to the other corner of the concrete pad in the brick building. Every day. We had completed compost in 2 weeks.
There was no time for class. That was class.
Yeah, you got 15 kids out there with shovels.
All right.
It doesn't take that long.
That's right, yes. Youth and shovels. There you go.
Right.
Good combination. Now, also under their okay category of shredded leaves, straw, lawn clippings, and compost. Oh, by the way, let's talk about straw first. When you buy a bale of straw, make sure it's a bale of straw, not a bale of hay.
Right.
Hay has weeds.
Right. Hay is the seedy part of it.
Yeah. So you want straw. And straw is fine. I like to use straw for walkways especially. Mm-hmm. But it's fine. I've got one bed covered in straw out back. And I'm be planting onions there in the next month or so. So I'll be removing that or moving it aside and planting the onions. Uh-huh. As long as it's straw, it's okay. Lawn clippings scare the bejesus out of me.
Because of the pesticides used in lawns?
Because of that, or it's Bermuda grass.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And if you've got a turf type that grows via seeds, stolons, and rhizomes, chances are you ain't killing it.
Creeping red fescue is stoloniferous, and also, I believe Kentucky blue is stoloniferous. So if you're not from California, where Bermuda grass is your nemesis, there are stoloniferous grasses that will survive or may survive. Their stems, their rhizomes, that's the thing about Bermuda grass is it has both. Stems that creep along the surface of the soil may survive the composting process longer than the leaves do. And so you may not realize that you're putting live stems out as your mulch.
I became a homeowner in my pre-master gardener days. And I remember listening to a gentleman talk about the benefits of using grass as mulch in your garden bed. And he never specified about the different types of grass. So I just, cut my lawn and threw it on top of the raised bed. Did I ever grow a fabulous crop of Bermuda grass in that raised bed? I tell you.
I bet.
It was forever, too.
Yeah, my dad would cut the grass and then put the grass into, this was in New Jersey, we didn't have Bermuda grass, but he would put it into a metal garbage can and he took the temperature of it with his long shanked soil thermometer too, and it got really, really hot, really, really fast. It can, if it's too thick, if grass is laid too thick, as it breaks down, it becomes sort of slimy and then it sticks to the other grasses, and it can also create a cap over the surface of the soil. Another reason not to.
Wow, you must be a teacher because you explained that without using the word anaerobic.
Yeah.
But yeah, grass can cause an anaerobic situation. You want air and water to permeate to the soil, so you don't want to use lawn clippings in that regard. So, yeah, if you're going to use lawn clippings, please don't use them in the same season that you may have used a weed and feed. When you go and buy lawn fertilizer these days, it seems like there is more bags of weed and feed products than there is of just straight fertilizer for lawns. So you have to shop very carefully because some of these, especially the post-emergent weed controls that are included in these weed and feed products are, to use a euphemism, persistent. Mm-hmm. Meaning they can last a long time despite the composting process of, I've heard 3 years or 5 years.
Yeah, a year I was thinking was not enough from some things we've talked about in the past. Yeah, herbicides on lawns are some of the most destructive. Maybe it's because we use more of them as a population than we use of other herbicides.
So if you are going to be planting a garden in the garden bed from seed, I would advise against using lawn clippings as a mulch the previous season, just because of the persistence of certain post-emergent herbicides, which could affect. It's not like a pre-emergent stopping the weeds. The plants that you planted from seed would come up, but they would be overtaken by the post-emergent remnants in that bed.
So they would probably grow poorly and be distorted. That's to me, distortion is the number one symptom of herbicide damage, and distortion means they're wrinkled or their leaves are misshapen or turning the wrong way or things like that.
If you still have that bag of weed and feed in your shed and you were thinking of using lawn clippings, read the ingredients on the bag. Do an internet search of those ingredients and see what the persistence of the active ingredients in a post-emergent herbicide are.
You used a lot of big words there.
I did use a lot of big words there, and I didn't mean to, but basically get out the magnifying glass, read that label, and you're going to have to be your own cop on this and look up the problems associated with each of those active ingredients for post-emergent weed controls, because post-emergent means after the weed comes up. It kills a living plant.
So glyphosate, also sold as Roundup, is an example of a post-emergent herbicide. It is not one that causes the damage you're talking about, right. But the things we apply it to are damaged by it. It doesn't prevent seeds from germinating.
The persistence of glyphosate is not as nefarious as the persistence of certain other active ingredients.
Yes.
If you see plants coming up that look funny, that should be at the top of your suspect list.
Yeah. I was called in when I worked for Cooperative Extension to a property that had, I think they were blackberries. It was spring, and they were coming up from a previous season. They were perennials. They had lived there previously, lost their leaves over the winter, coming back, and they were all distorted. And the people wanted to know why. And it was obviously, to me, herbicide application that had been done in the fall. The herbicide was absorbed by the plant, went to the roots, stayed over the winter, and then when the new growth occurred in the spring, it was back.
Yeah. Be careful. Now, another mulch that is gaining in popularity that the Sacramento Tree Foundation puts it in its secondary list of mulches to use. It's not in the best category, but in the okay category, and that's cardboard. Cardboard, very popular these days for sheet mulching. If you want to convert a lawn to a garden, not a bad idea. And it's not the summertime, you would sheet mulch.
Yes.
You can look up sheet. We'll have a link to more information about sheet mulching in today's show notes. And sometimes it's called lasagna mulching as well, where thick mats of cardboard are layered with newspaper, and that's beneath wood chips to smother the grass naturally. The cardboard eventually breaks down to enrich the soil, and it, though, can prevent water in the meantime from reaching tree roots.
Right. The people who don't like cardboard, that's their sticking point, is that it can prevent water from reaching the soil.
Yeah. And especially if it's waxed cardboard.
Yes, and they say use unwaxed cardboard, and I'm thinking...
How do you know?
Well, yes, and most commercial boxes, if you're receiving deliveries through the whatever delivery truck that drives up your driveway and leaves a box on your porch, most of those are waxed. Yeah. Some are more waxed than others. If you're getting fish, or my grandfather shipped me oysters once, boy, that box was really waxed. But others, they're waxed because the delivery person might be running through the rain and the thing inside might be damaged by water. So they wax almost all boxes.
Yeah. And the other thing that does not feed soil is packing tape and staples.
Staples, I've been thinking about that tea bag thing we talked about a long time ago. I wouldn't worry too much about them in terms of soil toxicity or soil nutrition. There are metals in soil. Ore is rock. Ore is what metals are made from, and rock is what soil is made from. So there are metals in soil. Its toxicity is always about concentration, how much you have in one location. But I think the bigger problem with the cardboard staples are they're huge, or they can be huge, and you could step on them and hurt yourself.
Or cut your fingers.
Yes.
Yeah. So try to remove as many as possible if you can. One tip that they have, though, if you do want to use cardboard, is be sure to thoroughly soak the soil before applying cardboard, and then soak each layer of cardboard as well, and periodically check the soil underneath to ensure that water is still reaching the roots all around the tree's drip line. And where does the tree's drip line go?
Well, it keeps moving out, but it is the very edge of the branches.
If not further.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I did this once, this type of mulching with cardboard, and I have to say it's very difficult to wet each cardboard thoroughly. You get the boxes, you break them down, you lay them down, you pour water on them. Well, they've got wax on them, so they don't absorb water very well. So we walk over it and try to break it up, and that part is very difficult.
Immediately, my brain thinks of, just throw them in the pool and come back the next day.
And they'll be on the bottom, and they'll be really heavy.
But, whatever it takes. All right, now we come to the Sacramento Tree Foundation's not ideal set of mulches to use that you may not want to use. Now, we talked about grass.
But they're talking about live grass. I had to read through it to figure that out.
Ah, okay. All right. I guess I have to read something now. Grass competes with tree roots for water and nutrients. We know that. And it secretes chemicals that inhibit tree growth. Additionally, trees have different water requirements than grass, needing a slower and deeper soak. If you want your young trees to grow fast, keep grass away from their root zones. Okay, well, when they're talking about grass here, they're not talking about grass as a mulch. They're talking about growing grass.
Yes.
Beneath
live
trees
grass,
and shrubs.
Yes.
No.
There's debate about whether the grasses really do give off chemicals and prevent the growth of trees. Is it that, or is it? I don't think that's been proven. Correct me, somebody, if I'm wrong.
Jugglands.
I'd love to know, but right, that's from walnut trees.
Yes.
But I think it's just the competition. Grasses have the most dense root system of all plants that have been looked into.
They're going to get the water and fertilizer first.
Yeah, they're at the surface, and man, do they have a lot of roots.
Yeah. So, and there's another very, very good reason for not growing grass right up to your trees and shrubs, and that is the number one cause of tree failure is injury to the trunk. Injuries to the trunk caused by mowers and weed whackers getting too close to that tree trunk.
Weed whacker disease, yes.
Yeah, it just makes perfect sense. That's one of the best reasons to keep grass away.
It's healthier for the tree. So don't have grass growing under your tree. In fact, have it way away from your tree. Your tree will grow much better.
I remember Steve Zion always mentioning the fact that if you do have a grass or a tree growing in a lawn, is of course clear away from the trunk of the tree, but then lay down an auxiliary soaker hose in a concentric circle around the tree, extending out to the outer drip line of the tree and running that separate from your lawn sprinklers.
Yes, it does need different irrigation than the lawn.
And here's one that I don't know why they don't have it under the bad category.
I agree with you.
But they have it under, what category is this again? This is not ideal.
Yeah.
Not ideal. No, it's bad, but they call it not ideal. permeable landscape fabric that plastic rolls you by that you can see through. And if you place it down correctly, water flows through it. Mm-hmm. Air theoretically flows through it, but it's plastic. Mm-hmm. Did you ever try to remove landscape fabric?
I did.
Yeah.
I sent you a picture.
Yeah, it's not easy, and it just comes up in shreds. And you'll have it forever. You'll find it years later.
Right, and it comes up all on its own.
Yeah.
Once it starts breaking down, and the roots of many things like weeds grow right through it.
Nutsedge and Bermuda grass will grow directly through landscape fabric. And as leaves, mulch, dust, and other organic materials accumulate and break down on top of the landscape fabric, weeds are able to germinate in this top layer anyway. And then when you go to pull that weed out, you bring the weed cloth with it.
Yes, you do.
And unfortunately, you won't be bringing up the whole entire weed cloth. That would be nice if that was the case.
It's just a piece.
It's just a little piece that you would be bringing up. This fabric serves as a barrier that prevents nutrients from cycling back into the soil.
Yeah, it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's certainly not ideal, but it's really bad.
Yeah, it's not. No. Well, the one thing that's worse than that would be, I don't know if it's under their worst category. Let's see. Yeah, it is. Plastic weed block, which is basically just solid plastic.
Right. And nothing gets through that.
Yeah. And you do want air and water and fertilizer to get through.
Yes.
That will stop it. And you end up with a lot of roots at the surface.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not only preventing the water and nutrients from getting to the roots, but it's resulting in an unstable tree because those surface roots in a big windstorm, big rain windstorm, they're not deep enough to hold the plant upright, and so it'll blow right over.
So we skipped over one category because that plastic mulch, the solid plastic mulch, was in their worst category. They only have one in the bad category, and that's artificial turf. I'm torn on that because I live with a golfer. They want a putting green. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be mowing bent grass. I'll tell you that much. If there's going to be a putting green on my property, it's going to be artificial turf. And if it's just a small section, I don't have a problem with it.
I've watched somebody who lives near me convert their yard from lawn growing green grass to artificial turf with olive trees planted at areas between it. It's just happened. It looks lovely. They built a little wall around it so you don't get up close to the artificial turf. So you don't. From afar, it looks nice. Yeah. But I don't know how those olives are going to do.
I'd be curious to see how lumpy that artificial turf becomes in a couple of years or so.
Right.
Because the roots are going to stay near the surface of that. I mean, if you are going to have a putting green with artificial grass, artificial turf, you don't want to plant any tree or shrub within 15 feet of that, if not more.
You want it to have the tree to have the ability to get a good root system before it hits that location.
So in that case, I'm neutral on artificial turf. If you do it correctly, I don't think it's a problem.
Right.
I consider it hardscaping.
Yes, like a patio.
Yeah. Just do it right. Okay. And nothing looks worse in a yard, especially a front yard, than artificial turf installed poorly. I won't mention who they are. I don't know who they are, but down the street. It's artificial turf, and they still have the sprinklers installed. Then they turn the sprinklers on it.
Is that dusting, maybe?
I think it's a case of they forgot where they put the sprinkler control box.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I never understood that. Anyway, okay, but getting back to their worst category that included the plastic weed block is another one you and I both talk about worst. Well, maybe not. Rocks and gravel.
Yeah, I'm not so down on that. I don't want that in my yard because I like to plant everywhere, and rocks and gravel, you can't just dig easily amongst them and put something new in or put in an irrigation line through them, that kind of thing. But as far as the problems the Tree Foundation came up with, which are heating up the soil and the weight slowly compacting the soil over time, I don't know that I agree with that.
They've done tests locally here on that because this subject comes up since the heat in Sacramento can get rather intense at times, over 100 degrees or so. And they studied the effect of rock mulch around maple trees, Japanese maple trees.
Okay, which would be very sensitive. This is not their ideal environment.
Right. They discovered that the high temperatures transferred on a hot day from the rocks to the soil only went a few inches deep, not to theoretically where the roots are.
Right.
but that means the tree was planted properly and it has been watered correctly.
Right.
So there is that too. I mean, you can't put down rocks and walk away. That plant needs water.
Right.
And how does water get through rocks? Slowly.
Slowly, yeah. It still protects the soil from compaction. I have trouble with their weight slowly compacts soil over time.
Yeah.
They aren't jumping up and down.
Yeah, they're just sitting there.
They're just sitting there. What would make them push harder over time?
People walking on them.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's a potential.
Yeah.
But if they're the kind of rocks, now gravel, people might walk on. But other rocks, unless they're huge, people in general don't walk on. And if they're huge, they're so heavy to begin with that the weight of a human isn't going to change things.
I like the idea of rocks for a pathway.
Yes.
That's fine. I don't like kneeling on rocks to do gardening.
Right. Yes.
That's for sure. That happened to be next to the pathway or whatever. So, yeah, rocks and gravel, not great, but
I don't think they belong in the worst category.
Yeah.
Not ideal, maybe. That's where I'd put them.
Next on their list is something I have had firsthand experience with, but using it for pathways, not for a garden mulch, is decomposed granite. DG, as it's known, is made of fine crushed granite. It's a common material in many water-wise landscapes and native plant gardens. While attractive, its installation typically requires compacting and or grading the soil. That's right. They brought in this big machine that tamps the soil, putting a lot of weight to get it down there. It provides then poor soil conditions for new trees. Since it's made of rock, it increases summer soil temperatures. And unlike organic materials like wood chips, it provides no soil nutrition as it breaks down. Have you ever tripped on a DG pathway? I have.
No, but I bet you had skin knees.
I bet, or a twisted ankle or something like that, because you're walking along a DG pathway, a decomposed granite pathway, and if you have gophers in your yard, they don't mind digging through that. And you don't see it because it's like camouflage. And all of a sudden you step forward and your foot goes down another 6 inches or so. So you could easily injure yourself if you have gophers. So I would say if you have gophers, I would avoid decomposed granite in any situation where people are going to walk. Another thing that they might do with decomposed granite is add a stabilizer to it to bind the material together to form a more concrete-like surface. Well, no water is going to reach a tree that way.
Right. So pathway's fine, but not as the mulch under a tree.
And again, if you are designing a pathway through your garden, especially through a tree and shrub-lined area, I'd really try to stay away with trees and shrubs from that pathway by at least 15 feet or so. Maybe that's too much. Maybe not, because eventually roots will find that area and they will come up the surface.
Yeah, well, roots grow where there's oxygen and water. So if that is preventing oxygen and water from getting into the soil, the roots aren't going to grow in that soil.
And the absolute worst mulch to use, according to the Sacramento Tree Foundation, and I certainly don't have any disagreements with that, is rubber mulch. Do they still sell rubber mulch?
I have not seen it.
Yeah.
But I use arborist chips, so I'm not mulch shopping much.
Recycled tires as mulch is not a good idea. It provides no soil building benefits. It heats up root zones. And what's in a recycled tire?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
And, if you fall on it, you probably get black clothing. There was, when I was in graduate school, which was in the early 90s, there must have been money coming from the rubber industry or the landfill industry or somebody who wanted to get rid of tires because the professors all had some money to study tires as mulch, tires as an amendment in container soil, some way to use up tires. And I think at that time they decided, not in the horticulture department, but it was a good addition to tar when they're redoing roads.
Yeah, or for whatever reason, as a base for playgrounds.
I don't know that I'd want my kids playing in a playground like that.
No. There's metal shards in tires.
In those, yes, that's true.
It's like, so I'm thinking that rubber has fallen out of favor.
I think you're right. I think it had its moment and it's gone.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. How do you like that for an answer, Patty? Just move the mulch aside in your garden if you want to plant seeds, and then you can move that mulch back closer when those plants are up and bigger than the mulch. That was the short answer. We gave you the long answer.
Yes, we did.
All right. Thank you, Debbie.
You're welcome, Fred.